There are times when you find something out and you kind of go like, oh no. But then there are other times when you read something that CIG has put out there and you're like, that's it. That's exactly it. That is a huge step in the right direction. And from the Q&A of the Mantis, which came out earlier today, we got one of those answers. Now, of course, the whole Q&A we'll go over in depth on Friday with ship updates because it's relevant to the ship. But this is more relevant to interdiction. And since we've been talking about interdiction pretty heavily, we should get into it. So the first part, what will the counter to this new feature be? And they go, oh, well, it's going to take a lot of power, so the ship might be weakened, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be primary target, so life is going to be interesting for a Mantis pilot. Things that you would probably expect. But the second part is really interesting. Longer term, there are plans to give players the opportunity to escape interdiction by dynamically adjusting their quantum drives. For example, adjusting velocity would in turn require the interdictor to adjust their behavior. So what I'm kind of pulling out of this, and you can say, oh man, you're reading way too much into it, but what I'm kind of pulling out of this is that the future of quantum travel is no longer going to be static. Now, we're used to quantum travel, right? We've had it for quite some time. And it has been one of the not so enthusiastic points in Star Citizen. There is the realism, traveling across an entire solar system and not just like boom, boom, you walk through a portal and you're there. I like the fact that, travel requires time, travel requires effort, travel requires thought. I'm very much, a fan of that type of realism in games. I really don't like the idea of whatever kind of MMO you're playing, you just cross over, you have to cross over a geographic area to get to another one rather than just say, oh, and by the way, I've just constructed you a portal. I like the fact that you actually have to traverse the world, that you have to see the world. I'm very much in love with that type of game design. And, the other way, it just shows you that the world is really just a whole bunch of levels interconnected by portals, so it's not all that good. But, when they're talking about this, what I'm kind of pulling out of it is the fact that, quantum travel is going to become a lot more deep in the future. It's not just going to be about static and sitting at the control panel going like, oh, well, I guess I'll be there in XYZ, I'll be there in X amount of, minutes because, here I am going through quantum. That we're going to get to play around with these things. And in a certain way, I hope that part of this kind of goes towards the heat and fuel issue. I hope that in the future, beyond just being able to manipulate the quantum drive as far as being interdicted goes by altering speed, as one example is given, that we're able to maybe, redirect cooling from another system. Like, let's say you're saying, you know what, I'm not sure I'm going to get into a fight on the other end of things, so why don't I shut down my weapons and reroute that cooling to my quantum drive so I can make the jump in one shot? That sort of thing. What if I dial the speed on my quantum drive down just a little bit and, I can actually make it without using all this fuel. I can lower my fuel consumption. That sort of thing. I like the idea that we're actually going to have something active to do while we're in quantum. In the past, we'd heard about, it's a good time to go and do ship maintenance, or that's why there's a pool table or whatnot, or a hot tub in your ship. But that was kind of the area where Star Citizen was kind of, I don't want to say disappointing me, but it was kind of like I was experiencing it and I was kind of feeling like I hope this isn't all there is. And in the past with the heat thing, I mentioned that idea before when we were talking about, quantum drives overheating and how that kind of, it didn't feel right, and a lot of people didn't like really enjoy that. And I said, okay, I get it. You're trying to make travel impactful and much more realistic, but here's a different way to go about it. Give players the ability to, manipulate the heat consumption or the heat dissipation of their quantum drives through active gameplay while in quantum, rather than just it's a static system, it overheats, you stop. Because quantum really is kind of boring right now. I was hoping for more activity within the confines of quantum travel. And the fact that, they say this when they're talking about it, it tells me that they are kind of exploring that direction. Now, are we going to get to a point, speaking specifically of interdiction, are we going to get to a point where, you can see an interdiction sphere ahead of you on your route and you can go, oh man, there's an interdiction sphere coming up? Or is it going to be just like it is now, where you get the vibrating effect and the little bit of lightning, and then all of a sudden, boom, you drop out of quantum? Are you going to have to be there at that moment and just like push a button and alter velocity, and then it goes, oh, okay. And also, if we're altering velocity in quantum, does that mean that we can back it off and maybe avoid overheating at the expense of maybe taking the trip a little bit longer, or maybe reduce fuel consumption? With that, it kind of hints that there is going to be a lot more depth coming to quantum in the future, and I'm kind of really glad to hear that, Travel in video games is always going to be a very tricky problem, because you kind of want people to get to the content that they want to do in a reasonable amount of time, but you want your world to be meaningful. You want it to be something that is experienced, And there's always those two extremes, There's the player who says, oh, I just came home from work and I only got half an hour, and why do I have to fly for 2 hours to get all the way to this, location? I should just be able to, take a transwarp conduit there. And, for my convenience, I'm a paying player. Why should I have to work for it? And then there's the other side of it. It's like, no, this is like a world, and you have to go along with some of the rules of that world, and you have to experience the world. And, when quantum travel was devoid of depth, when it was just a button you pushed and then it's like, okay, see you in 15 minutes, it wasn't all that great. And I don't think that it really, I think it was easier to argue the point of why does it take 15 minutes if we're just pushing a button and sitting there? This is boring, this is dumb. But when you add depth like this, when you add value to staying at the controls and monitoring your systems and maybe manipulating your systems in the future, when you do that, I think you justify the travel time. You justify the experience of traversing the world. And I think that that's a good thing. I think that it's a really good thing that we're in a position where, yes, there is that temporal inconvenience, but I don't think that when you're actively managing your ship, when you're actively manipulating your systems and interacting with the game and with the ship, I think that it becomes a lot more understandable and a lot more excusable when you have that in place. So just even in the answer, in this little 2 sentences at the end of this, answer to what, is there going to be any counterplay to quantum interdictions? I found a lot of value in that answer, and not just, like, oh yeah, there will be. It's no, like what they're hinting at is greater depth to the system in the future. And frankly, I'm really glad to hear it. When I saw that, I went, oh, good. You know what? This could mean this could mean that. Great. This is an area in the game that, I mean, currently it's kind of an annoyance and an inconvenience and kind of, just unclaimed territory in terms of gameplay. But, with this, it looks like they have a plan for it. And hopefully they're going to add more stuff to it in the future, because I think that you could really gain a lot of depth and add a lot of value to travel other than, you know, screenshots of ships warping through space, which at this point has gotten a little tired. Should probably stick one of those on the button for this video. Anyways, that's the show for today. Once again, Friday we will go all the way through the entire Mantis Q&A, thoughts and opinions. Can't wait to read the whole thing. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.